Eric Lauterbach, how are you? You are the president of Peet's Coffee, and we really are very excited to be talking to you today.
I'm great. Thanks, Chris. I'm excited about it as well. How are you?
Good, good, good. We are going to be honoring you this year again, and we honored your predecessors previously and Peet's as well for being a company that really understands that people are the point of profits. And when you do business that way, profits come in all the right ways. And you are a wonderful and shining example of that. And we're going to be talking about a few different aspects of that. But first of all, thank you for just doing business that way and for being that kind of company.
Well, you're welcome. I think first of all, I appreciate the recognition. I think we've always tried to do that here at Pete's and be really cognizant of giving back to the communities where the coffee comes from and be a very people-oriented and people-first culture. And it's important to be recognized by that outside of the four walls here, if you will. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and you've been with them for a while, and now you became president this year. But I think it's at least 10 years you've been with the company, right?
Going on 13 years in
13.
July.
Okay, even
Go
even
crazy.
more.
Yeah.
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 So you're very familiar, obviously, with that way of doing business. We were very intrigued by the saying, and a lot of times sayings can be nothing more than sayings, but it really sounded like it rang true with you guys. In one of our last interviews, we talked about the concept of scaling with soul, and I was very intrigued by that at the time. Uh, and like I said, a lot of times these phrases can be just phrases, but in your case, there are some pretty interesting things that you guys have done through the years and continue to do. And one of the ways that I was really intrigued is the way that you've grown essentially your supply chain, which is just extremely cool. Tell us a little bit about, again, those relationships that you have with small farms, and that goes back for many generations, and the way that that's an integral part of your business.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. And I think, we're a much bigger company than we were 13 years ago, or what, going into our 56th, 57th year here. What we're most proud of is we've continued to grow very consistently with our core, and we haven't changed the beliefs as we've grown. And we're actually in this position now we can give more back, I think, to the farmers, and that's what the sourcing with impact was really all about. That we've now got a little more scale. We've partnered with Veritas, and I think when you look at, you've got what, 85 million, I'll get the number wrong, but somewhere in that range, farmers. The majority of them are very small farms out there. What I've always appreciated about Pete's, and I'm a Northern California native, so I grew up on Pete's, and it's a real privilege to lead the company. But when you think about what we've consistently said is we're going to pay above the market for the coffee, and we really believe in helping the farmers get better productivity and better yields, which leads to better prices and a better quality of life. So, we're very cognizant of the ecosystem of coffee here at Pete's and also the broader JDE Pete's, and we know we have to invest back in that and help people get better at producing great coffee. It's a product that has to be supplied. We're really cognizant of that. People have choices, and we also have pretty high standards on the coffee. So I think that it's a really good system. It's a good healthy tension in there, and I think we've got the ability and the responsibility to give a lot back. But when I go to Origin, which I've done a couple of times with Doug Welsh, and you're now on the third generation, if you will. Doug's the third roast master here, buying from the third generation at a certain farm. There's a lot of pride in that we've grown with a lot of these farmers. They've grown with us, and I think that's why we've had such a consistent coffee experience over the years, and it's a big part of our growth.
Yeah, I mean, and that's huge when you think about it. I mean, we don't talk enough, I think, about farmers in this country, and the struggles and the challenges. Actually, anywhere in the world, the smaller farmers in particular, and what the challenges that they've had because of globalization, because of some of the bigger farms and whatnot that have been buying up the smaller farms and so on and so forth. But for you guys to not only support them economically, but from what I understand, I mean, you've got a lot of training and support programs that you do as well, to help them along the way. So it's not just a relationship of commerce. It really is an incredibly diverse relationship that you have with them, right?
Yeah, we've got projects, that are going on in 24 some odd countries.
Wow.
We got 39 different projects worldwide. This month alone, I wish I had a package here. I should have thought of this of our anniversary blend, which is from women farmers, and we're supporting that with a Center for Women Entrepreneurship in Colombia. We previously had during Black History Month our Jubilant Blend, second year of doing that. So we're able to bring smaller, even as we've gotten bigger. We've got a bunch of big, real commercial SKUs that are products that are brands that are all over the country. But then we're also still able to keep doing these smaller lots and these smaller blends, and we can take the production of a certain farm or a couple of farms where it's not enough to go nationwide into all the grocery stores that we're in, but we can bring it out, sell it in our stores here on our website, and really tell a story about the farmers and make it very personal. Coffee's an emotional category. We haven't lost, which I really appreciate. We haven't lost our ability to do the small while we've grown and done the big, and that's not always easy.
Yeah, and I mean your numbers are extraordinary. You're doing this kind of thing, which when we talk about a lot how uh, there's a misnomer that in order to make profits, you got to just have this bottom line oriented thinking, and we really take issue with that and say, hey, if you support the people, in every sector, uh, that is going to add to your bottom line eventually, and it's going to make you grow. And you guys are continuing to grow by leaps and bounds, right?
I think we are. My time here, we've grown the business 3x. And when you do that, when you've grown three times, you're also adding jobs. And when you're
Yeah.
getting bigger, as long as you're growing consistent with your values, which is what I believe, then that system continues to work. And I do believe that we've gotten the growth the right way. Look, some things we've done have been better than others, and that's part of business. But we haven't lost sight of, and I think the pandemic really reminded us of that. If we've got, I'm using round numbers here, 5,000 employees here in the U.S. at Peet's, and let's just say 90% of them, 95% of them can't work from their dining room tables. We need to be really cognizant of those working in the roasting plant, the distribution center, grocery stores, retail stores. That's part of what makes this work. So I think that's something we've kept front of mind as we've gone through that, and we're still small enough, we're big enough, but small enough where it's we've got a good line of sight to that. And again, look, I think we're imperfect like anybody else is, but we're pretty good at trying to do the right thing for the people and the business. And I do believe that is what drives the growth and the profits, is we have to have it all working together. We can't just be focused on the bottom line, but we also have to keep growing the business. We grow the business, we grow the careers, and that's where it all has to come together.
Yeah, well, it's that virtuous circle, right?
Correct.
You made an interesting point about the pandemic, because you guys really did a lot to keep your stores open, and there were people talking about that from both sides. But then when I talked to your predecessor as well, and the idea that you just put out there, I mean, these people can't work from home, and if you don't keep those stores open, those people aren't going to be getting an opportunity to get a paycheck, and they're not going to be an opportunity, they're not going to have an opportunity to work. So you gotta, it's all part of a big system when you have a huge company like yours. And I see that you guys take a lot of effort to look at the whole circle and to look at the whole system and say, we have a great responsibility here because we're a huge company. The decisions that we make are going to ripple effect and have an effect on a lot of different people. And so, again, I applaud you, for taking and making that effort, to do that. You mentioned the Women's Entrepreneur Center, and I love that what you guys are doing with that. I had an opportunity of interviewing some female farmers a few years back, and I thought their stories were really amazing. We don't hear a lot about that. We don't hear a lot about that sector, of commerce. And uh, tell us a little bit about what that's about and how that's going, because I think that's something that our viewers and readers would love to hear about.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit about it. I got to tell you, we're in this year 3 or 4, and it was really started by the coffee department. But the coffee department's got the long-standing relationships back in what we call, the countries of origin,
Yeah.
and they saw an opportunity and they saw a need, and then we're able to help them with the yield, buy the product, and then tell the story. And then we've made an investment back into this center in Columbia. And I think we had kind of had a little bit of a hiatus during the pandemic. So I will tell you, we've remained committed to it. I also believe there's more we can do with it. And, one of the opportunities we have here, and we will be doing it this year, sending a few of our, women leaders from the U.S. into Colombia to be a part of that, understand it, learn it more. So what we have learned when we've brought the women farmers in to tell the story and tell the story to the Peetniks here, it really resonated. And I think, for us, you got a lot of really small farms,
Mm-hmm.
really small farms that don't get the exposure. And for us to be able to understand first of all, it's critical for us to understand where our product comes from, where the beans are coming from, and then as we're able to give money back and help the farmers take the next step, and the women, of course, the women farmers, to be able to grow from a business perspective. It's a great thing to be a part of. So we will continue to do that. We, of course, weren't able to travel. You lose sight now with the pandemic. We all
Yeah.
talk about, you probably lose, somewhere there's a 2-year gap that somewhere is out of everybody's lives, right? But as we get more into that in the next couple of years, I think we're only at the beginning of that. But the beauty of that is, and I think here's where that came from. This was not a corporate initiative. This was a point of passion from our coffee department, who gets to know the farmers personally, who sees the opportunity, who believes that we as a company should be doing something with that, and they drove it ground up, bottom up, and it became something. We did that with Columbia, with the anniversary blend that's out there now, the Jubilant blend with during Black History Month before that. And they're fun things to do. They're meaningful things to do to the organization. Again, coffee's emotional. It helps us tell a story. So that's the fun part of the job. It really is.
And you know, you had mentioned, how great you feel being able to run this company now as president, having worked for it for a while. But you just hit on something that I want to ask you a little bit more about. I mean, it sounds like this really is a fun company to work for. And how does it feel to be able to do business that way, and to be able to lead a company that's doing business this way and is able to be responsive to a passion project like this? I mean, when you talk like that, it almost, sounds like a small business that you're talking about, not a huge multinational corporation. Uh, that's got to feel great to be able to run a company that way.
Well, it is, and I think it's what keeps me here, going on year 13, right? I mean, there's the brands, companies, particularly at a certain stage in your career, at least personally, you have to believe in where you're working. You have to have a brand that stands for something. I think it's important to me. It's meaningful to the consumers. The majority of consumers, 50% of consumers, say they want to know that where their coffee came from and what matters to them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to our consumers. It's important that we have a point of separation. It's also important that we have a purpose. So we're not just selling a bag of stuff on the shelf. And I've grown up in consumer packaged goods. I've been very, very fortunate to work for a number of great, very ethical companies. I think coffee is very special. I think the relationship we have at Origin is special. We've got one roasting plant. We've got one distribution center. We have a chance to see and touch the product every day. And we've got this great business that has a grocery business, also still has a retail coffee shop business, which which is a different animal in and of itself. And those stores, they take on the character of a community. So I think it's a lot of fun. And again, we're 56 years old. There's a great responsibility that I feel to continuing on with the principles of our founder, Alfred Peet. We're a company that celebrates longevity here at Peet. So we've got, as we bring new people into the culture, we also have people who've been here 15, 20, 25 years. And that's pretty special too. So I think it's fun, but there's also a big responsibility. Look, part of the challenges here I'd say, how do now we have to make the choices that allows us to get to the next 56 years. And how do we get to the next chunk of growth, delivering what consumers need today in a way that's consistent with our past, but not constrained by it. And that's where the challenge comes in. We've got the same pressures, particularly here in California, as anybody else, around how we manage all those different aspects of the business, the employees, the bottom line, the top line, the growth rates, et cetera. So we're not bored over here by any stretch.
And what do you look at when you're going forward like that? Now you've been, at the helm here now for was it last year that you
Yeah,
came on?
just about a year. Time flies. Yeah.
What do you look at now when trying to preserve that and trying to retain that with growth? What are you focusing on in particular as you move forward?
Really good point. I think we're moving to a spot here where we need to be much more, and we are being much more consumer-led, I'd say, than Peet's-led. And I mean that not in a negative way with Peet's, but we're no longer just a little Berkeley company that can just design products because we like them. We have to look at how are new consumers coming into coffee today. There was a great article that was written at Harvard. We have the coffee business at Harvard, and there was a student that wrote it and said, "Hey, America may run on Dunkin', but that Harvard runs on Peet's. America may run on Dunkin', but Harvard runs on Peet's." Wonderful story. And you read through that and you look at, as she rattled off all the drinks, they were drinks that were not necessarily drinks that we'd be drinking here ourselves in Berkeley. And they were not necessarily cups of black coffee. They were different iterations on that. So I think as we think about that, we think of like, all right, how do we adapt and attract new people into the brand, into the coffee experience? They're going to come in with a different type of drink, whether it's hot, cold, milk-based, plant-based, you name it. And how do we round out the offering without sacrificing who we are? That to me is a great tension. It's a real balance. I'm a simple person, so I just drink Peet's black coffee. So I'm not the consumer for a lot of the stuff that we're doing. But we also have to do things. It's helpful for us to do that because it pushes us to get a little more modern, to find a different voice. And it's a good challenge internally. So we're not just doing the same thing. There's plenty of examples of brands and companies that don't listen and pretty soon become irrelevant, outdated, passed up. So part of my responsibility is we can't do that. We have to keep taking that next step. We have to challenge it. We have to put Peet's in a different form. Some of those are going to work. Some of those are not going to work. We have to continue to push and expand the brand, because when we do that, it puts pressure on us to really learn and grow and do things differently too. But none of that works if we sacrifice our quality. So that's the good thing that continues to anchor us, I think, which is a really good place to be.
I love listening to that because what it tells me is there's a democratic aspect to that I think is very powerful when you talk about that. We talk so much about how business today can really be this incredible force for social good and social change if it's run that way. I almost, listening to you, I almost think politicians and people in government should listen to you talk from that perspective. If government was as responsive as some companies like yours are to what customers need and want, I think we'd have a lot less problems. But there's this element there that there really is this power to the people element there that I think is extraordinary, because so many companies now are realizing, like you said, you know, customers want something, that they can identify with, that they can see some social value to. When you're listening at that level, it's pretty amazing. That guy wrote an article, obviously, but do you get a lot of feedback from your customers that enables you to do that? And do you have a means to doing that?
Well, yeah, I think we're in no shortage of feedback from our customers. And I also think it's the feedback from our customers and also the ones that are not our customers that we have to find that balance for, right? And if we are attracting new customers without taking away from what our existing customers want, that's what we have to be able to do. Some people say, boy, I wish you weren't in XYZ store, or I wish you didn't have this kind of a drink. But we didn't take away Major Dickinson. We didn't take away the core of what they're doing. They also can't say that we're downgrading the product, right? I think the companies have to evolve. We do a lot of the things the same way we did 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years ago, which is really, really important. At the same point in time, we have to put Peet's in the place where people are living, drinking coffee, and shopping for coffee. That's our responsibility as a brand. If we're not doing that, we're not able to drive back to the points of origin. We're not able to keep growing the company. So that's, I think the good tension here. We should be very good, and I think we're better some days than others, but we should always be listening. And sometimes the answer is going to be no, but we at least have to listen and we have to give the answer. And I think we have to find that balance of not jumping to the next fad, but really thinking, all right, what does that look like? Should Peet's do it? Can Peet's do it? Can we do it in the way that is consistent with our brand? And then the business aspects of it, of course, have to make sense, right? We can't chase around every idea, or we're not going to be responsible to the shareholders or the people who work and depend on us.
Yeah, I love that concept of listening. That's a lesson for all of us in all kinds of ways, right?
Right.
And don't ever take away that Major Dickinson, please, because I love that. It's my favorite coffee of your guys. So, talking about that growth now, and where this all goes, and being where people drink coffee, you've had some interesting things happen this year. You're in Saudi Arabia now, right?
We are. Oh no, we're in the United Arab. We're in UAE. We're in Dubai. We have 2 stores open in Dubai.
Dubai. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And we'll be expanding more broadly in the Middle East in the coming years. Yeah.
How did that happen? And what's that? How's that going?
I think it's going really, really well. And it happened, I think a couple of things happened here is, look, coffee's a global category. We have the opportunity to grow and expand the brand. We also have, a partner who's our international franchisee over in Dubai, and they were looking to enter the coffee space. So it's a big coffee culture there. Our competitors are there. A lot of consumption, actually one of the fastest growing points of consumption in the world for coffee. So we looked at the market and said, okay, could Peet's fit in that? Is there the spot and the premium segmentation, if you will, of the category we could play? And then do you find the right partner? Now, the partner came to us and said, we were looking at coffee and we had 2 consultant agencies go out, scour the market. You came back on the top 3 of both. So we sat down and talked. Yeah. Partner was Americana, terrific people, deep ties to the community there. We got to know each other, and that was our first international franchisee arrangement. It has been, I think what I love about it, quite honestly, is it pushes us, and it challenges a lot of the things. When you hear yourself say, you think, okay, hang on. Does that make sense? How do we translate this brand to consumers in a different part of the world? And I was over there. I was over there for our ribbon cutting back in January, which was a lot of fun, and I think a great response. So we're going to learn a lot from that. And sometimes when you get partners who are not in Berkeley, I think part of our native Californian, but we also have to think a little bit broader than California. Not the rest of the world doesn't look like California. And once you start doing that, you learn different things. So as an example, look at both in Dubai and also in China, and we've seen this here. Peet's has got a legacy and a dark roast, 20 to 30% of our business. The majority of consumers in the US and other parts of the world drink medium roast. How do we respond to that? So those are the things that then drives us back in. And when we did this years ago, we entered medium roast here in the U.S. market. The coffee department came in and said, "That's fantastic. I can start buying coffees that I couldn't have bought before." And that expanded our ability to support more farms and grow the business. So our mix of business may shift a little bit in terms of what the tastes are of consumers in different parts of the world. And I think that's really good for us to, as a brand, to understand. We oftentimes have a tendency to want people to drink coffee exactly the way we want it, and that's not the way the world works sometimes. So I think it's been great, and it's been a good learning experience for the company. It's going to be a good opportunity for people to push and expand and grow their careers and their aperture a little bit here.
I love that. Again, I'm going back to that government and politics thing. Our government and our political structures can probably learn a lot from business, and the way you're talking about doing business internationally. In the past, decades ago, when we would hear about American companies going overseas, it was always about bringing our values there, or bringing our way of life or our products there. And I love hearing what you're saying about listening to what they want, listening to what they're looking for, learning what their flavors and what their taste is. And it's such a great lesson for not just business, but for all of us, really. And such a great opportunity for growth and international an international summit, if you will, of ideas, and to be able to bring your company and bring your product over there and be able to interact in that way. So hats off to you for doing that, and how things are going.
Well, don't get me wrong. We still have our point of view on how the coffee should be served. I think so. We haven't. What was important to them is bringing our perspective on coffee there. What we will learn from them is how to translate that experience in Dubai. So I think that's the right balance. But part of this is I want to find partners like Americana and others that make us better, because that's where we have the right challenge. There's certain things we will not sacrifice on the coffee. But if you say you want a bold coffee and a strong flavored coffee in a fresh form, but it needs to look a little bit different and hit a different taste profile, let's have that conversation. So that's kind of where we're having good iterations that helps us evolve the brand. And there's a lot of new consumers that will touch our brand through that experience. Matter of fact, I just had an email today, which is one of fantastic. International business person passes through in Dubai, has an experience in our store. They're opening up either a cafe or a restaurant back in the U.S. on the East Coast, and they want Peet's as a part of it based on what they saw there. So that's exactly why we do that, and I think that's where we're a really big brand here in Berkeley. We're a small brand in the U.S. We're big in numbers, but in terms of awareness, we're not one of the big two guys. And I think that's what helps expand the brand. We expand the brand, we grow the business, we grow the people and the careers, we give more back to the point of origin. That's how this whole thing works.
I love that. We're all connected, right? I mean, the connections never cease, and I'm always amazed at that. So that's a great story. Hey, Eric, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this. It sounds like you guys are growing by leaps and bounds for all the right reasons, and we would love to continue the conversation and have some more of these conversations as well in the future.
Terrific, Chris. Anytime. I really appreciate the time. I appreciate you reaching out, and I'll look forward to staying in touch.